3 counts of first-degree murder at the deaths of the children, his former wife, Tammy. These kids were so young at the time they disappeared, and it was more than 8 months later before they found their bodies on the property owned by the defendant. Chad and Lori were leaders of the religious cult group of sorts, and that's what the state says led to these crimes. And we're going to take a look back now. The court has a guy on the stand by the name of David Stubbs. Okay, this is the latest information from this trial as it continues to unfold in Boise.
We were able to eliminate quite a few of those phones as that they had been surrendered, if you will, or turned to somebody else and no longer had anything to do with them. This count had kind of gone into default because of lack of payment.
Okay. Let's go down to 2020-09.
Okay.
You can describe for the jury what that warrant was for.
Okay, so again, you're going to see the Homer J. Maximus, but so when these apartments were abandoned, 175 particularly, no one ever returned to them after the 27th. So the landlords, if you will, or owners, went in to clean out all the stuff that was in there. And when they were in there, they had located in some of the stuff to abandon devices that they thought best to turn over to us. So this is a result of looking at those devices. The new one that you would see with Alex Cox is the raylamar@gmail.com.
And then again, Homer J. Maximus is that right. Homer J. Maximus again?
Yes.
Tell us about warrant 2020-15.
Okay, so this was originally written. If you notice the second number over in this warrant, a typo, I put it in parentheses here, was put 47 when it said it should have been 74. So those two numbers were just crossed. Anyway, what this means with a tap and trace warrant, we still could not get answers on where the kids were, and couldn't get information from Lori.
And let me interrupt you really quick. I apologize. Do you recall approximately when you submitted this warrant, 2020-15?
Would have been fairly early in January, I believe.
Of 2020?
2020, yes.
All right, thank you. Yeah, and if you can explain what a pen register tap and trace is.
So what this does is we request this on these numbers because we believe we could associate these with the parties. The company, which would have been Verizon here, would send us live data, not necessarily conversations, but where the phones would be, if you will, hitting off of cell phone towers to give us a general location of where they might be at this time, live, if you will.
Okay. So it's is it fair to say it's used to try and track a person's current location? Or let me rephrase that, a device's current location.
Yes.
And you did that trying to find those phone numbers that are listed there. Do you know who those phone numbers belonged to?
So yeah, this is going to be a long and short of this, but because it's going to come into connection with 2020-20 as well, because if I may kind of explain that.
Sure, please do.
So the 15 was wrote to Verizon Wireless. Well, ultimately, two of those numbers, Verizon said they're not our numbers. You're going to have to also get a hold of T-Mobile. So two of those numbers in 2020, as you see, T-Mobile wireless, were in the above warrant. However, we had to write a new warrant for T-Mobile. So they're both in conjunction, if you will. Okay, now that I've explained that, ask that question again.
So the numbers that are on, and I'm actually going to say between 2015 and 2021, who do those numbers belong to?
So we believe those numbers to be associated with Lori Vallow, Alex Cox, Tylee Ryan, Chad Daybell.
If you were looking for Tylee and JJ, why were you looking at Chad Daybell's location?
Well, I mean, Lori and Chad were married. We couldn't get a hold of either one of them. We couldn't get any straight answers as to where they were. We couldn't get any answers as to where the children were. So they were associated.
And I'm going to just kind of back up just really briefly. When you obtain a warrant, how do you obtain a warrant?
So we have to enter what is called a probable cause affidavit to the court on why we want it and what we believe we will find once that warrant is signed by a judge. So with that probable cause affidavit, a warrant for what we are looking for is presented to the court. The court reviews that. If they feel like our probable cause is just, a judge will sign the warrant, allowing us to move forward with serving the warrant on whoever it is we're serving it on.
All right. So the warrants are signed by the judge.
That's correct.
On these pen register / tap and trace warrants, were you able to locate Chad Daybell and Lori Vallow through those warrants?
Yes, we were able to locate the devices which we believe to be with them in Hawaii.
Warrant number 2020-25. Can you tell us what you found or what was searched and found on that?
Okay, so upon finding where they were, we had investigators, FBI, go to Hawaii, Kauai, if you will, and they were able to locate Chad and Lori. A warrant was obtained to gather evidence from their residence where they were staying there and their vehicle. This is the result of 10 electronic devices that were taken from their rental car that they were both in. And so that is what the 10 electronic devices is for, why we obtain warrants.
And did you search all these devices yourself, or did other agencies and other personnel help in searching some of these devices?
So yes, I'm glad you brought that up, because all these warrants, when you get back a return from Google, Verizon, you have to understand these are thousands of pages long, thousands of records, thousands of pages. And for just one person to go through all that, and especially in the short time frame we were trying to do this to find kids, is simply impossible. And so a lot of the returns that I got from this, I would give out to FBI, other investigators for review, so we could try and go through a large record in a short amount of time.
And we'll return back to some of the things that were found on that in just a bit in 2020-25. Can you tell us about 2020-30?
Yeah, would you mind just moving that down just a little bit? Thank you. So this again was another tap and trace warrant on a phone that we found. You have to understand by this time, like I stated at the beginning, we still had no answers even after contacting Chad and Lori as to where the children were. We weren't getting any answers. No one was talking to us. So again, with this tap and trace warrant, we were still looking for children. And we were trying to establish if this device was anywhere around the children. So that's the reason for this one.
And the next warrant, 2020-31.
Okay, David Stubbs here, a retired detective from the Rexburg PD. That's the local guys, and they're just on the ground grinding it out. They got some warrants to do some phone taps. Interesting prosecution question, kind of a toss away like, well, why were you looking at Chad Daybell's location? Gives them an opportunity to say, the kids are missing. Who better knows or should know where the kids are than the parents? Catherine Lozardo is here, Sky Lozaro. As I listen to this, I get the sense this guy had no clue what he was stumbling into as he's tracking these folks. And, they're on the honeymoon in Hawaii. Much easier to get your honeymoon off to a good start in Hawaii when you've, offed your kids. Catherine, it sounds like these guys early on, though, had a sense something bad had happened because they were getting no help from the parents.
Definitely. That's why they had to get this warrant. And he's going through the probable cause. And the prosecution was asking him, how do you get a warrant? And so by this witness explaining that they had probable cause, that gives us an idea that they knew more at that time and had such inkling that there's something wrong. That's why they got the warrant for all of their devices, and they were even able to coordinate with the FBI to review the thousands of data in there. When both Chad and Lori could not identify where the kids were, obviously that's problematic because they should be with them. And we saw an earlier clip of Lori's interview with the police when the police visited her, where she's blaming it on her ex-best friend that the kids are with Melanie Gibbs. So they keep on deflecting that and mounting the evidence that not just Lori, but Chad should have known, but he didn't know supposedly because he was in it.
Yeah, immediately just something didn't smell right. So Sky, in your experience, you're up there in Salt Lake City, so not in your experience with this particular set of law enforcement agencies, but in general, I've got this, Rexburg, not a large area. It's about, 240 miles north of you guys there in Salt Lake. At some point, the light goes on and they bring in FBI, et cetera. In your experience, is that a quick process? Does it take a while? Is it case specific?
I think it depends. It's very case specific. The FBI is not going to expend a whole bunch of resources on just run-of-the-mill cases unless there's something that maybe the feds have an interest in. But in this case where you're talking about missing children, you're involving multiple jurisdictions where these people are now in Hawaii. Idaho doesn't have any jurisdiction over, people who are in Hawaii. So you really need to bring in federal help in these cases. Not only that, they have resources that states don't have. When you are talking about going through this massive amount of data for phones and tap and traces and all of these sort of geofence type stuff, you really need someone with that expertise, and most local departments just don't have it. Yeah, that when the investigation headed off to the islands, you might have to pick up the phone at that point. So, and they did, and that was the beginning of this whole thing. Again, the Chad Daybell murder case underway. We're going to take a break. Continue our coverage of that case out of Boise. Again, accused, I should say, of killing his wife, 2 kids. Anyway, we're going to take a break. We're going to come back more on this story in Idaho. Here we are.